The death toll from a pre-Christmas blizzard that paralyzed the Buffalo area and much of the country has now risen to 27 in western New York alone. And this is according to authorities. The region is now digging out from one of the worst weather-related disasters in history. The dead have been found in their cars, their homes, some in snowbanks. Some died while shoveling. The storm that walloped much of the country is now blamed for at least 48 deaths nationwide, with rescue and recovery efforts continuing today. The blizzard roared through western New York Friday and Saturday, stranding motorists, knocking out power, and preventing emergency crews from reaching residents in frigid homes and stuck cars. Huge snowdrifts nearly covered cars Monday, and there were thousands of houses, some adorned in unlit holiday displays that have been dark from lack of power for days. The massive storm is expected to claim more lives because it trapped some residents in their houses and knocked out power to tens of thousands of homes and businesses. And at one point during the weekend, over 1 million people were without power in eastern Canada and northeastern U.S. The extreme weather stretched from the Great Lakes near Canada to the Rio Grande along the borders with Mexico. About 60% of the U.S. population faced some sort of winter weather advisory or warning as the temperatures plummeted drastically below normal from east of the Rockies to the Appalachians. Now, what is going on here? We haven't seen any stories like this about people dying from heat waves in the U.S., yet for decades, they've been spoon-feeding us the global warming narrative. But it was, in fact, the coldest Christmas on record in southwestern Florida ever recorded, in both Punta Gorda and other areas, smashing their previous records that held since 1983 and 89 during a famous cold blast. The coldest Christmas in Southwest Florida, and it was a white Christmas. Only the second flurries ever reported in this state on this date, and it may have even snowed in Miami.
Oh baby, it is snowing in Miami.
Okay.
What a day. What a day. Oh.
And these are not on the front page of the news because it doesn't fit the narrative. In fact, heavy snow in Japan leaves 17 dead and dozens injured after a snowstorm walloped the area with 2.3 meters of snow, 7.6 feet of snow in Japan. And the total snow mass for the northern hemisphere, excluding the mountains, has been well above baseline and normal for 3 years running. So there is a pattern, and it's not one of warming. The temperature today is the same as it was 2 decades ago. There has been no rise in temperature on Earth. The Earth has simply been breathing, but yet it's getting cold. Well, in fact, it has everything to do with the sun. Solar cycle 24 and 25. Yes, we're talking the last decade or more, have been the weakest solar cycles in over 100 years. Even weaker than cycle 15 and 16 back in the centennial minimum. And here you can see solar cycle 24 in pink and solar cycle 25 in brown. And they are over 50 or 100% weaker than all the previous cycles in your lifetime. And here we're looking at the 6 weakest cycles in the last 150 years. And you can see cycle 24 in black and cycle 25 in green are 2 of the weakest cycles out of all of the cycles in the last 150 years. And this means we are in a grand solar minimum. A new paper coming out, Peculiarities of the Heliospheric State and the Solar Wind Magnetosphere Coupling in an Era of Weakened Solar Activity. Notice that? An era of weakened solar activity. They don't want to say grand solar minimum because then they would put their career on the line. But here we can see the solar cycles on top, sunspot numbers, have been decreasing steadily since the 80s. And the fraction of solar wind events has dropped off a cliff starting at about 2000. And the sun has been in shutdown mode for decades. And there is a lag time. And we are now experiencing the effects of the sun shutting down. And as the sun shuts down, the magnetosphere on Earth is shutting down. It's shutting down in epic proportions. If we fall below VADM 6, which we are projected to do, we will be in a mass extinction scenario. And then there are predictions of the geomagnetic secular variation, which we are showing you the graphs. There's not a lot of good data. This was the low point in 2015. And, well, what they're suggesting here is, well, and all of these is on the top two graphs, less magnetic field is upwards, so the weakening magnetic field is predicted to continue, maybe exponentially here. And if we just drop this graph down here, 2030, we're off the chart. Now, why is Earth's magnetic North Pole drifting so rapidly? Well, it has to do with the weakening magnetosphere. And as the magnetic field weakens, the strong magnetic field on Earth weakens as well. And the poles, well, they decouple. And as the field gets weaker, the poles have the ability to move more rapidly. And sometime after the Carrington event in 1890, the pole took a little jiggle and began rapidly moving to the east and accelerating. Now, this is not good news. This means that we are rapidly accelerating into the next magnetic excursion. And based on papers that have come out in the last decade, the entire reversal could happen within a decade. And that is not good news. That means that we are going to see more severe effects on weather, more severe effects on humanity. And we've been warning you now for 7 years. Don't be scared. Be prepared. Proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance in a cold world. And that's a boom to knowledge. Hope you got something out of the video. It's just the beginning. And like I've said, for almost a decade, it's not going to be one big event that shuts it all down. It's going to slowly ramp up, and things are going to continue to get worse. Will you be ready? We hope so. Be safe. We love you. And that's a boom.